Disclaimer. We are interested in everything and experts in nothing. We enjoy learning, but get it wrong sometimes. We mean no disrespect, and if we mess up, kindly correct us. Let's take this ride together, unless your intention is to cause harm or distress, in which case, with utmost haste, fuck right off.
Okay, so I'm Sarah.
I'm Roxana.
And this is actually a momentous episode. It's episode 52. It's been a year, guys.
It's been a whole year.
Yeah, if we ignore the fact that 3 came out in one day.
We're going to ignore that.
Yeah, because then math is hard moving forward. But a year, guys.
A year! One whole year of doing this insanity.
Yeah, so...
And what have we learned? So many things.
So many things. How many stuck? I'm not sure.
Like, there's just like a reel in my head of like Caligula and Loch Ness Monster and drag and stuff. So I'm just like, please don't make me specify.
Yeah. No, literally sometimes I forget I can't even remember all the things that we've done, and then something will come up and I'm like, oh, I know this.
I know this because of this.
Yeah, exactly. So you get the honors.
I have the honors, which, you know, again, last time I did something in honor of spooky season beginning. And it wasn't really that spooky at all, which, by the way, I got that book. Fabulous. Beautiful. This time I'm going to go a little bit more into the traditional of the spooky season. We're going with Vlad the Impaler.
Nice.
Yes.
The origins of
Dracula,
of Vlad, right?
Yes. Or
okay.
Vlad Dracula, which was his father.
Oh.
And he was also called Dracula, which is son of Dracul. His father was Dracul. He was Dracula, which is son of Dracul.
I learned something already.
I know, right? Already. Off to the beat. So Vlad was actually Vlad the Third.
Oh.
So he was not even the first Vlad. He was the third Vlad.
Wait. Okay. So then why was his father Dracul and not Dracula himself?
I don't know.
Oh.
That part, I think they go by the... It's not even a last name. It's like a surname. Because they don't have the same...
Oh, naming conventions. No,
I think
that's
the
fair.
naming convention might be backwards. Somehow. I don't know. I don't speak Romanian.
I don't either. But maybe it's like... I don't know. Never mind.
I truly don't know. I think they differentiate with the second name or the title. Like, you're Vlad. I'm Vlad. I'm Vlad Dracul. You're Vlad Dracula. But we're still Vlads.
Maybe,
I don't know.
Okay, anyway, move on.
We're going on. All right, so Vlad the Third is known commonly, more commonly as Vlad the Impaler or Vlad Dracula. He was born around 1428 through 1431. Written account obviously is a little sketchy, so...
Yeah, you might not know this, and that's okay, but where are we in, like, European history at this point? Is this the Crusades? Like...
The 1420s.
Yeah, what happened in the 1400s?
Well, the Ottoman Empire is a pretty big, massive deal, so I think it might be... Well, Ottoman Empire was the Turks. I didn't look up time, like, what else was going on in the world.
That's okay. I'm just trying to orient myself.
Pages of and I cut out a bunch of shit that didn't seem necessary.
No, that's so fair. Okay, I was just trying to get my bearings.
Right.
Go ahead.
He lived from 1438 or 28/31, probably around the year of his birth. And his death is still also questionable. It's anywhere between 1476 and 1477. Now, they only have a year of iffy time frame, so that one's a little bit more concrete.
Okay.
He was the Voivode of Wallachia.
Whoa. And
3 times between 1448 and his death in or around 1476 or 77. The Voivode is a list of rulers. It's what they called...
Oh, like a king.
Like a king, chieftain, whatever. They didn't say king. They didn't say sultan. Sultan was an Ottoman Empire thing. We'll get to that. His sobriquet, Dracula, meaning son of Dracul, was derived from the Latin Draco, meaning dragon, after his father's induction into the Order of the Dragon, created by the Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund for the defense of Christian Europe against the Ottoman Empire. So, still kind of the Crusades, but Ottoman Empire I believe they were generally Muslim, but I could be wrong about that. I really should have looked it up more. But anyway.
Okay, well,
I know
there's a lot.
He's most known for being in Romania, he's a hero.
Okay.
He's like a state hero, and he is known for saving Romania from the Ottoman Empire.
This is the father.
Yeah, no, this is
the
Vlad
Impaler.
The Impaler. This
is
Vlad the Impaler.
Wow. Okay, so this is definitely a thing of like perspective then. Okay.
Yes. He was probably born after his father settled in Transylvania in 1429, so it's real that he lived in Transylvania. Historian Radu Florescu writes that Vlad was born in the Transylvanian Saxon town of Sighisoara. I have no idea if I said that right. It was then the Kingdom of Hungary.
Okay.
His father lived in a 3-story stone house from 1431 to 1435. Modern historians identify Vlad's mother either as a daughter or kingswoman of Alexander I of Moldavia, or his father's unknown first wife. Which, that's bullshit. Like, he gets married, and we know nothing about her. We don't know how she died, whatever. It's just his unknown first wife. I would haunt a bitch if that was how I was remembered.
You know what it reminds me of? I think was it TikTok I just saw it?
Maybe.
I think it was. I think I maybe sent you the video. The whole being the woman ain't the move.
Yeah. Right. Yep. So clearly she was well loved by all, considering she is the unknown first wife.
Yeah.
Seriously, I would haunt the living fuck out of everyone if that's how they tried to memorialize me.
Yeah.
So Vlad moved to Targoviste, Wallachia in 1436 when his father assumed leadership of the Wallachian Vivolte. So he moved around because his dad got control.
Okay.
Cool. And I only know how to pronounce Wallachia because of the Netflix special, or the Netflix show Castlevania.
Oh.
The animated show, which was based off of a game, but Wallachia is in it, and Transylvania is in it, and Hungary and all that stuff. And so it was like, I saw that word, and I'm like, oh, I know that town! I know how to say Wallachia!
Kind of like how I learned a lot of my basic history from Civilization.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Or how I learned my basic geography from Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego.
Yes! Exactly. Okay.
Anyway, as long as we learn, it still sticks with us.
Learning is learning.
It's fine. Learning is fine. Let's see. In 1442, Vlad and his younger brother were sent to the court of Ottoman Sultan Murad II as collateral to assure the Sultan that their father, in reversal of his previous position, would support Ottoman policies.
Oh, so
Right?
he was like an original flip-flopper.
Well, yeah, he was, but it was also, I'm sure the Ottomans outnumbered them at the time, so he kind of did the whole thing like they did in Game of Thrones, where Ned Stark took Theon Greyjoy of like, he's my ward now, because I have your son, and you're not going to go against me if I have your son. So it looks like he's doing the same thing, where it's like, you can't go against me, I have your sons.
Got it.
So I don't think it was exactly willingness
to
support. I think it was more court politics involving, I will kill your sons if you go against me.
Okay, no, that's legit. That's fair. That's fair.
So that's more. Vlad returned in 1448, having been informed of the assassination of his father and elder brother at the hands of the Wallachian boyars, who were nobles, the year before. Since he was old enough to be the candidate of the throne of Wallachia in 1448, Vlad's time of birth would have been about 1428 and 1431. Again, not the greatest with the records. The Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II ordered Vlad to pay homage to him personally, but Vlad had the two Sultan's envoys captured and impaled.
Wow.
So he made his stance pretty clear. In February 1462, he attacked the Ottoman territory, massacring tens of thousands of Turks and Bulgarians.
Oh.
Mehmed launched a campaign against Wallachia to replace Vlad with Vlad's younger brother, Radu. Vlad attempted to capture the Sultan at Targovoste during the night of either the 16th or 17th of June in 1462. The Sultan and the main Ottoman army had left Wallachia, but before more Wallachians deserted to Radu. So basically, he tried to capture the Sultan. The Sultan was already gone. And then the Wallachians are like, dude, you just put 2 people on pikes. We're kind of thinking your brother might be the better ruler here. So then Vlad goes to Transylvania to seek assistance from Matthias Corvinus, who was the king of Hungary in late 1462. But Corvinus had heard of his tales and his kind of psychoness and had him in prison. He was like, you know what? You need to have a timeout. You're a little bit too extra for this. Go have a timeout.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah, so he was actually in prison from 1463 to 1475.
8 years.
Yeah, he was in a long-ass timeout.
Yeah.
During this period, anecdotes about his cruelty started to spread in Germany and Italy. So dude's locked up, and stories of his cruelty are still floating about.
Wait, but at this point, he's only impaled 2 people?
He's also slaughtered tens of thousands of Hungarians and Bulgarians. So, I mean,
Okay, so
I'm
he was
sure
a beast.
more of them were impaled. I'm sure a lot of them were impaled.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And
Because I'm
he was
thinking, like, it's just... I mean, it's cruel, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it's just 2 people. Is that really worth talking about for 10 years? Like, is
Well,
this really that unusual?
He did launch that campaign, and there were, tens of thousands of people slaughtered.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
not great.
So,
Not great.
Got it.
Not the greatest guy in the world.
beast on the battlefield.
Beast on the battlefield, yes.
Okay.
Let's see. He was released at the request of Stephen III of Moldavia in the summer of 1475. He fought in Corvinus's army against the Ottomans in Bosnia in early 1476.
So, okay, wait.
So
Basically, they caged the animal until they had a use for him?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, okay.
Yep, that's
All
exactly
right.
what happened.
Okay.
Let's see. Moldavian troops helped him to force Basarab Leota, who had dethroned Vlad's brother Radu. So Radu was in charge of Wallachia, and then this dude Basarab Leota. I don't speak Russian, or not
Nope.
Russian. I don't speak Hungarian or Bulgarian or any of that. So I'm sorry about the pronunciation. But basically, he had dethroned his brother. So personal vendetta.
Oh, so his brother was ruling while he was in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. But then somebody dethroned him, and so he's like, oh, fuck you. You dethroned my brother. I'm going to make you flee Wallachia. And in November, he did return with Ottoman support before the end of the year.
Did he ever really rule?
He did, and we're going to get into that now.
Okay.
Because he ruled Wallachia 3 separate times. So in German-speaking territories, books were actually written describing Vlad's cruel acts, and they were among the first bestsellers.
So we've always been fascinated by blood and gore and
Always.
creepy, morbid things. Okay.
Yes, always. So in the German-speaking territories, they wrote books about his terror, and they were some of the best-selling at the time.
Wow.
Because, I mean, how are you going to believe this dude? At some point, you're just going to be like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Well, clearly a lot.
Yeah, but see, so far I haven't heard that much that sounds like he's...
We're getting there.
Okay.
We're getting there. In Russia, popular stories suggested that Vlad was able to strengthen his central government only through applying brutal punishments, and had a similar view that most Romanian historians adopted in the 19th century. So they're agreeing that he basically ruled with terror.
Okay.
And brutal punishments. Vlad's title inspired the name of Bram Stoker's literary vampire Count Dracula, because it was Vlad Dracul, and there were Dracula because he was son of Dracul.
Yeah.
The name Dracula is now prominently known as the name of a vampire, which we know that.
Yep.
However, it was his sobriquet, whatever that means. I think it just means his title. Diplomatic reports and popular stories referred to him as Dracula, or Dracula already in the 15th century. And he himself signed 2 letters with the Dragula, which was Dragulya, or Dracula, Drakulya.
So what I'm hearing is Rob Zombie's Dragula is actually accurate. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So his father was Vlad the Dragon, so he was Vlad, son of the dragon. So, in modern Romanian, Dracula means the devil, which contributed to Vlad's reputation. Vlad III is known as Vlad Tepes or Vlad the Impaler in Romanian historiography. This is connected to obviously his impalement, which was his favorite method of execution.
Wow.
The Ottoman writer Tushtan Beg referred to him as Kazikila Voivoda, Impaler Lord, around 1500.
All right.
Yeah. So, first time he ruled Wallachia. His father and his elder brother died. Vidislav II of Wallachia accompanied John Hunyadi, Hunyadi?
Hunyadi?
Hunyadi. They launched a campaign against the Ottoman Empire in September of 1448. And taking advantage of his absence, Vlad broke into Wallachia at the head of the Ottoman army early in October. He had to accept that the Ottomans had captured the fortress and they had strengthened it.
Oh, okay.
The Ottomans defeated Hunyadi's army in the Battle of Kosovo. And they urged Vlad to come meet him in Transylvania, but Vlad refused him. Vladislav II returned to Wallachia at the head of the remnants of his army. Vlad was forced to flee to the Ottoman Empire on December 7th. So he tried to take over while they were fighting the Ottomans, and then they came back and were like, dude, what the hell? And so he fled to the Ottomans. So, Ottoman War. So the emissary for the Sultan's army had basically said Vlad refused to pay the homage to the Sultan. So the emissaries were sent like, hey, yo, you're supposed to send us homage. You're supposed to give homage to the Sultan.
Mm-hmm.
Then the impaling.
The impaling. Got it. Yep.
Happened. So after the execution of the Ottoman officials, he gave orders in fluent Turkish. So he spoke in their own language.
Okay.
To the commander of the fortress at Giragua. I don't know how to say that. Giurgiu.
Uruguay?
It was the fortress that the Ottoman army had taken and strengthened it.
Okay.
And so he was like, well, fuck, I want that fortress. So in perfect Turkish, he tells the official to open the gates.
Mm.
And this enabled the Wallachian soldiers to break into the fortress and capture it. Because apparently he was that good at Turkish and they didn't notice an accent or see any impaling sticks. And they opened the door like, oh, dude said to open the door. I feel like maybe they should have vetted those soldiers better, but whatever.
They needed a password.
He had the right password, which was apparently just pronunciation. So pay the fuck attention to your Duolingo.
Yes.
It will get you far in life. So from there, he invaded the Ottoman Empire. He devastated villages along the Danube, which was a river. Mm-hmm. He informed the king of Hungary, and in military action, he sent them a letter on February 11th. He said more than 23,884 Turks and Bulgarians had been killed at his order during the campaign. Which I'm like, 23,884. He seriously counted every single one. Because he didn't round it up like 24,000 or 23,500, 23,800, 23,884.
Or more.
And somebody was like, with one of those like ticker things, like when you have to like count the occupancy of a room, going 1 dead guy, 2 dead guy, 3 dead guy, 4 dead. Oh my god!
Maybe he
24,000 dead guy.
He lined up all his men. How many did you kill? How many did you kill? How many did you kill?
Everybody,
math it up.
Everybody, be honest. Don't push your numbers. Just tell me. I need to send a letter to the king.
Jesus.
Yes, and of course, this was for the honor of the king and the Holy Crown of Hungary, and for the preservation of Christianity and strengthening the Catholic faith. Not because he was a psychotic fuckhead.
That hurts my head.
I know.
Okay. Sure.
The relationship between Moldavia and Wallachia had become tense by 1462, probably because he's like, dude, I didn't tell you to do that. I didn't do that. You shouldn't have done that.
Stop committing atrocities in my name.
Which I'm sure is something that
Jesus
says all the time. And any god of any kind, really.
Yeah.
Moving on. So having learned of the invasion, Mehmed II, the guy who sent the emissaries and they had been impaled.
The Ottoman guy.
The Ottoman guy. He raised an army of more than 150,000 strong, and it was said to be second in size only to one. Don't know what the one was. I'm going to assume Alexander the Great army. Who knows? But they occupied Constantinople in 1453. According to the size of the army, suggested that he wanted to occupy Wallachia. On the other hand, the Sultan II had already granted Wallachia to Vlad's brother before the invasion. So this was back before his brother had been overturned. The Sultan himself was like, here, you can have Wallachia. But then he comes with this massive fuck-off army because Vlad was doing his thing. Yeah. And so, yeah, not cool. The Ottoman fleet landed at Brela, which is on the Wallachian port of the Danube, the river, in May. The Ottoman army crossed the Danube under the Sultan. They outnumbered the enemy. They were outnumbered by the enemy. So Vlad adopted a scorched earth policy, which I'm like, I'm sorry. Wasn't that already your policy?
I mean, yeah, how is this different? I'm a little concerned.
It's a little bit more... Okay.
Version 2.0.
That's fine. So the scorched earth policy, he retreated towards Targoveste. So he was like, okay, well, I'm going to fuck this up. So this is when he tried to break into the Ottoman camp in an attempt to capture or kill the Sultan. Either imprisonment or the death of the Sultan would have caused panic among the Ottomans, which would have enabled Vlad to defeat the army. However, the Wallachians missed the court of the Sultan himself and attacked tents of viziers.
Viziers. Oh, okay.
His advisors. He didn't get the Sultan's camp. And having failed to do so, Vlad and his retainers left the Ottoman camp at dawn. Mehmed entered Tragoveste, which was where he was hiding, and the town had been deserted. But the Ottomans were horrified to discover a forest of impaled.
There it is.
There it is. Thousands of stakes with the carcasses of executed people. And this was a letter by Leonkias Chalkokondylis. Chalkokondylis.
What a name.
It's a really long name.
What is his name?
The Sultan's army entered the area of the impalements, which was 17 stades long and 7 stades wide. There were large stakes there on which, as it was said, about 20,000 men, women, and children had been spitted. Quite a sight for the Turks and the Sultan himself. The Sultan was seized with amazement and said it was not possible to deprive his country, a man who had done such great deeds, who had such diabolical understanding of how to govern his realm and its people. And he said that a man who had done such things was worth much. The rest of the Turks were dumbfounded when they saw a multitude of men on stakes. There were infants, too, affixed to their mothers to the stakes. Birds had made nests in their entrails.
Okay, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
First of all. Second of all...
The dude's like, respect?
Yeah! He's like, you're an evil genius.
You're an evil genius.
You're the nemesis I deserve. Like, what the fuck?
I know. Like, I appreciate the work you did with the birds and the entrails and the... No.
Oh my god!
Yeah, so...
That's... I mean, honestly, I don't know what that says about me. I find that more disturbing than the fact that Vlad did
the shit. Yeah. The fact that the Sultan went, you know what? This guy's not half bad.
Yes!
He's a freaking genius.
Oh my god!
No, he's a psychopath, you asshole.
Fuck.
Oh my god.
Okay.
So, the main Ottoman army left Wallachia because, whatever, Vlad failed in his assassination or imprisonment attempt, and so the Ottomans were like, we already won. We got more people, so he's running for the hills. His brother Radu and his Ottoman troops stayed behind at the Bulgarian plain. Radu sent messengers to the Wallachians reminding them that the Sultan could invade their country. And although Vlad defeated Radu and his Ottoman allies in 2 battles during the following months, more and more Wallachians deserted to Radu because they're like, that guy's fucking crazy. He's putting people on pikes. He doesn't care who. He doesn't care how old. And apparently the Sultan is fine with it.
Yeah, I feel like they're in a lose-lose situation.
They are in a
here.
lose-lose situation.
Yeah.
Yes. So Vlad withdrew to the Carpathian Mountains, and he was hoping that the King of Hungary would help him regain the throne. However, Albert of Isentamazo, who was a deputy of the Count of so many Hungarian names, Szeklis, had recommended in mid-August that the Saxons recognize Radu as the real ruler. So he's not going to help you. We're going to say Radu's the real ruler. And he made the burghers of Basov confirm their commercial privilege and pay them a compensation of 15,000 ducats. So basically, they said, no, we're not going to help you. And here's some money. And to I assume the commercial privileges, so trade. They basically were holding trade hostage and were saying, no, Radu is who we're going for. We're not helping Vlad. And the Radu court paid $15,000 to make it so.
Okay.
Yeah. So fuck that guy. Reputation for cruelty.
Okay. I feel like we've established this, but let's dig in.
The first recorded stories about his brutal acts began circulating during his lifetime. After his arrest, the courtiers of the king, who had him saying, you know what, you need a timeout. You're fucking crazy. Go take a timeout. They had already written stories to Pope Pius II, basically saying this dude's fucking crazy. And then 2 years later, the Pope included them in his commentaries that he wrote a lengthy poem about Vlad's deed, alleging, based on his conversation with the Catholic monk who had managed to escape from Vlad's prison. The poem, called Von Ane... Nope, that is a long bunch of Hungarian. It's called Story of a Despot Called Dracula, Devoid of Wallachia.
There we go. We can say
and
that.
And it was performed at the court of Frederick III, Holy Roman Emperor, during the winter of 1463. So someone basically wrote a play where Vlad had two monks impaled so he could assist them to getting into heaven. So I'm going to get you higher to God by shoving you on a stick. And then, because he's fucking awful, he had the donkey that was one of the monks' donkeys, had him killed because he was braying after his master's death. So the donkey was upset, so he's like, you know what, fine, fuck it, go up there with him.
What?
Yeah. No.
Dude's crazy!
Yeah, he is. And then, of course, he was they accused Vlad of duplicity, stating that he had promised to support both the King of Hungary and the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, and had no intentions of keeping the promise for either of them. Which, it kind of sounds like he might have done that. But, yeah. He was imprisoned because of his cruelty. There was a rumor that while he was in prison, so he's still in his time out, he had rats cut to pieces and stuck them on small pieces of wood because he was unable to forget his wickedness. There was another anecdote that they described Vlad as a man of unheard cruelty and justice. Which I'm like, I don't think that counts as justice.
Do they can they be both?
Okay.
I
don't know. Turkish messengers came to Vlad to pay respects, but refused to take off their turbans, according to their ancient custom. Whereupon he strengthened their custom by nailing their turbans to their heads with 3 spikes, so they could not be taken off.
What?
Yeah, this guy was fucked. So these are the rumors that are circulating about him while he's imprisoned. That he's cutting up rats and putting them on mini wooden pikes because
you gotta hone your practice. You can't get rusty.
Right. And when he was out and fighting against the Ottoman Empire and 2 Turkish, men came up to him, he nailed their turbans to their heads because they wouldn't remove their turbans.
Okay.
It's a lot.
This guy's wild, man.
Yeah. Works containing the stories about Vlad's cruelty were published in Low German, which was more the common tongue, in the Holy Roman Empire before 1480. The stories were allegedly written in the 1460s because they described Vlad's campaign across the Dunabi the year earlier in 1462, but they do not reference Mehmed II's invasion of Wallachia in June of the same year. So, not 100% sure how accurate they are. The stories about Vlad's plundering raids in Transylvania, however, were clearly based on eyewitness accounts because they contain accurate details. This includes the list of churches destroyed by Vlad, which, again, if he's doing this for the glory of the Catholic Empire, why the fuck is he destroying churches? They weren't mosques.
Were they Catholic churches?
I mean, they were in Transylvania, so I think they would have to be.
Then I have no idea.
I know. I think he's just fucking crazy.
I think that's it.
They describe Vlad as a demented psychopath, a sadist, a gruesome murderer, and a masochist. How? How can he be a sadist and a masochist? I don't know. But they basically said that he was worse than Caligula and Nero.
Okay, but let's be fair. We did Caligula, and he had some historical
shit talkers.
So I actually had the thought earlier, like, how much of this is real and how much of this is shit talk. But when you got into the 20,000 people, I'm like, when you see that many people impaled, I feel like a lot of people probably saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that had to happen, at least on some level.
Yeah. Now, they do have a caveat saying that these stories are emphasizing Vlad's cruelty are to be treated with caution because his brutal acts were very probably exaggerated or invented by the Saxons. Now, he still did the fucking impaling shit.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that was written in, like, the Lower German, Saxon based books might have been made up or
quasi-fictional.
Embellished heavily.
Yeah.
The invention of the movable type printing contributed to the popularity of the stories about Vlad, making it one of the first bestsellers in Europe. So not only Germany, all of Europe.
All of Europe. Wow.
To enhance sales, they published books with woodcuts, and their title pages depicted horrific scenes. For instance, the editions published in Nuremberg in 1499 and in Strasbourg in 1500 depicted Vlad dining at a table surrounded by the dead or the dying on poles.
Okay. How exactly does this gruesome scene turn it into a bestseller, but cards are fucking banned?
Right, right? No, you can read a book about a dude sitting and having a roast chicken leg in a field of impaled bodies. That's okay.
But don't you dare play a card game with your buddies.
Gamble for shit. Gambling will send you to hell. Reading about this is research.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
So this is, again, another embellished story. We don't know how true it is. We don't know. It could be embellished, but the dude was fucking psycho, so who knows?
Yeah.
It said, Vlad had a big copper cauldron built and put a lid made of wood with holes in it on the top. He put the people in the cauldron and put their heads in the holes and fastened them there. Then he filled it with water and set a fire under it and let people cry their eyes out until they were boiled to death. And then he invented frightening, terrible, unheard of tortures. Because that wasn't frightening and terrible enough.
Or unheard
of. He ordered that women be impaled together with their suckling babies on the same stake.
No, we saw that earlier.
Yeah, the babies fought for their lives at their mother's breasts until they passed. Then he had the women's breast cut off and put the babies inside head first. Thus, he had them impaled together. I don't know about that last part.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know about the first part. I don't know about him actually boiling people to death, but we do know the Sultan saw a field of impaled men, women, and children, so...
Right, and the Sultan said, dude, respect.
Right.
So that doesn't sound like someone who was playing it up.
Right. So maybe he did boil people and make them cry their own death? I don't know, but yeah. Again, maybe he just impaled like 4 people, and then now he's like, I didn't do any of this! But whatever. There are Slavic stories. There are more than 20 manuscripts written between the 15th and the 18th century, which preserve the text of Skazani o Dracul Vivode, the tale about the Vivode Dracula. I should have just read the English one. The manuscripts were written in Russian, but they copied a text that had originally been recorded in a South Slavic language, because they contain expressions that are alien to the Russian language, but used in South Slavic idioms, like diavol for evil. So, I mean, that's kind of cool. The 19 anecdotes in the Skazine are longer than the German stories about Vlad. They are a mixture of fact, fiction, and according to historian Raymond T. McNally, almost half the anecdotes emphasize, like in the German stories, Vlad's brutality, but they also underline his cruelty enabled him to strengthen the central government in Wallachia. So, for instance, the Skazin wrote of a golden cup that nobody dared to steal at a fountain because Vlad hated stealing so violently that anybody who caused any evil or robbery did not live long, thereby promoting public order.
Well, yes.
But, yeah, I mean, there's a very big... Well, technically, however.
Exactly.
And then, of course, there's the German story about Vlad's campaign against the Ottoman territory, underlined by his cruel acts, which they emphasized his successful diplomacy, calling him evil wise.
Evil wise?
Evil wise.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's evil, but he's using it in a wise way. No, he's not. He's fucking evil, but whatever.
Yeah.
Just because people are too scared to go against him.
I feel like he's, chaotic evil over here?
Chaotic evil? Yeah, like not lawful evil. This is just chaos.
Not even neutral evil. Like,
it's
no just straight up.
When it comes to impaling.
Evil, just evil free-for-all.
Evil, yes. On the other hand, they did criticize his conversion to Catholicism, attributing his death to the apostate. Some elements of the anecdotes were later added to Russian stories about Ivan the Terrible of Russia. So they kind of, the more embellished stories were like, oh no, that wasn't Vlad, that was Ivan the Terrible.
Huh.
So that's kind of interesting. Now these are stories written outside of Romania.
Okay.
About him.
So like the foreigners.
German stories, Russian stories, Slavic stories, that whole thing. They're coming from the Ottoman Empire, coming from the Saxons, those who basically he fought against, or whatever.
Yeah, his enemies.
However, in Romania, he is a national hero. The Cantacuzino Chronicle was the first Romanian historical work to record a tale about Vlad the Impaler, narrating the impalement of the old boyars of the Tragoverste for the murder of his brother. So basically they're saying that he forced the young boyars and their wives and their children to build a castle. This is Ponari Castle. It mentions it complemented with the story of Mastero Manul, who allegedly walled his bride in to prevent the crumbling of the walls of the castle during the building project. I hope that's wrong.
That's a thing you see though.
Right.
In tropes is
It's
like
just
people
true.
walled in. So
Yes.
I feel like that comes from somewhere.
It comes from somewhere.
There's a reason we've got that in our heads that it happens.
Yes. So they published a local legend about Vlad written on rabbit skin for the villagers who helped him escape to the Poenari Castle to Transylvania during the Ottoman invasion. So they helped him escape, and they wrote it down on this rabbit skin. Further local legends are known from the German and Slavic stories about Vlad, suggesting that the later stories were preserved in oral tradition. For instance, the tales about the burning of the lazy, poor, and the lame at Vlad's order and the execution of women who had made their husband too short a shirt can also be found among the German and the Slavic antidotes. So the Germans and the Slavics are adding this. Whereas the peasants are telling tales about Vlad's frequent impalements, but they said only such cruel acts could secure public order. So they're saying basically he had to do it in order to secure. So the Germans and the Slavs are saying, he's killing people for making too short of a shirt for their husbands. And everyone else is like, well, he is impaling people, but it's the only way to have control.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Most Romanian artists have regarded Vlad as just a ruler and a realistic tyrant who punished criminals and executed only unpatriotic boyars to strengthen the central government. So he only did it when he had to.
Right? Don't question him.
Yes. And there was a Romanian epic poem focusing on him, and he was presented as a hero fighting against the boyars, the Ottomans, the Strigoi, or vampires, and other evil spirits at the head of the army of gypsies of at the head of an army of gypsies and angels. So they're saying he's great.
Okay. Well, I mean, we do enjoy our vampire slayers.
Yep.
I do, anyway.
There was a poet, Dimitri Bolentenyo, emphasizing Vlad's triumphs in his battle of the Romanians in the middle of the 19th century. He regarded Vlad as a reformer whose acts of violence were necessary to prevent the despotism of the boyars. Let's see. There is a Romanian poet who wrote a letter to the princes of Wallachia urging Vlad to return from the grave and to annihilate the enemies of the Romanian nation. You must come, O dread impaler. Confound them to care. Split them in 2 partitions. Hear the fools, the rascals there. Shove them into 2 enclosures. From the broad daylights ensile them. Set fire to the prison and the lunatic asylum. So it's like, come back from the dead and help us?
Yeah, because he's totally capable of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're basically saying that in the middle of the 19th century, Romanian historians have treated Vlad as one of the greatest Romanian rulers, emphasizing his fight for the independence of Romania from the Saxons and the Ottomans. And they're saying that Vlad's acts of cruelty were often represented as rationalizations, saying that they were preserving national interest, and that he could only stop the internal fights through his act of terror.
I guess I can see why they would at least be in support of someone who fought for their independence. Like, I can understand that angle.
A historian named Constantine Gherescu remarked that the tortures and executions which Vlad ordered were not out of caprice, but always had a reason, and very often a reason of state. Ion Bogaden was one of the few Romanian historians who did not accept this heroic image, however. His work, published in 1896, basically said that the Romanians should be ashamed of Vlad, instead of presenting him as a model of courage and patriotism. According to a poll in 1999, 44.1% of the participants chose Vlad the Impaler as one of the most important historical personalities who have influenced the destiny of Romanians for the better.
Again, if he fought for their independence, I can understand the perspective.
Yes, so 4.1% said, no, he was a kick-ass dude and was not at all a psychopath that needed extensive therapy or possibly to be put down for the good of all humanity.
He can be both. He fought for your independence and you appreciate that.
However...
And he was a psychopath.
However, his methodology, not so much.
Okay.
So how did we get the vampire mythology?
Right.
The stories about Vlad made him the best known medieval ruler of Romanian lands in Europe.
Makes sense.
However, Bram Stoker's Dracula was published in 1897. This was the first book to make a connection between Dracula and vampirism. Stoker had his attention drawn to the blood-sucking vampires of the Romanian folklore, which was the Strega that we mentioned earlier that he killed.
Mm-hmm.
And his limited knowledge about the medieval history of Wallachia came from a book accounting the principalities of Wallachia and Moldavia with political observations relative to them. He did not know much about Vlad the Impaler, and he said certainly not enough for us to say Vlad was the inspiration for Count Dracula. For instance, Stoker wrote that Dracula had been of Szecki origin because he knew about both Attila the Hun's destructive campaign and the alleged Hunnic origin of the Szekis. I don't know what that is. But his main source accepted the reliability of the German stories that describe Vlad as a wicked man. In his books, there's actually no references to the historical figure. The name of the character being named in all drafts, but the later ones Count Vampire. Consequently, Stoker borrowed the name and scraps of miscellaneous information about the history of Wallachia when writing his book about Count Dracula. So even though they state, a lot of people say, well, Vlad the Impaler was the inspiration for Count Dracula, he really wasn't.
Interesting.
They've kind of connected it because here's this psycho guy impaling people in a land called Wallachia, and then here we go with Count Dracula using the same name, also in Transylvania, but in fact, he knew very little about Vlad other than the Germans calling him a disgusting bad guy.
Oh.
But that's what I have!
Oh my goodness, that was a ride.
It was an insane amount, and I'm sorry.
It was a lot. But that's okay, well done. Okay. We had to go big anyway.
We did.
Because yay, 1 year.
Yay, 1 year.
So, if you enjoyed the podcast, fuck that.
It's been a year, we can't do this shit anymore.
Let me try this again. If you enjoyed the podcast, give us a like, share, subscribe on any platform. You can find us on social media. We are on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Our Trivial Obsessions. We're on Twitter at Our Trivial Pod. We have a website, www.ourtrivialobsessions.com, where you will find our episode bonus materials and references. And we have an email, randomqueensobsess@gmail.com. Random.
Because we are.
Queens.
Because we are.
Obsess.
Because we do.
So reach out there with any suggestions for a future episode or anything you want to add to the conversation. And with that, we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.